Alrighty guys, welcome to Seminar 3. Thank you very much for boot camp this morning and coming along. A part of something that we really want to, focus on as part of this challenge is not just providing you with good workouts or good content that you can sort of do each week, but make sure that when you do come, you're learning and you're gaining knowledge. What this is going to be able to do is help you with your prehab, so your pre-exercise, and then when you start training, you get those few little niggles, you know how to manage them, you know how to look after your body. When you're doing these types of things, you learn to understand your body a little bit more. You understand, okay, I'm quite tight in this hip, how can I release that? Oh, this hurts, why does that hurt? And we're able to, identify that before we're going forward, pushing ourselves a little bit too hard and causing those injuries. Guys, I've seen Rod here for the last 8 years. Rod treats me every single week. I've seen him since I was 17. I absolutely love what Rod's about. The biggest thing that I like about Rod, physiotherapy, osteopath, chiropractics. There's quite a large spectrum, but when it comes down to it, I find that Rod's done his study both overseas in China, here in Australia, and it's a good mix between that Eastern and Western balance. It's not just what the textbook says, there's a wider variety to what Rod does and why he does it. So today, guys, we're going to go over our mobility session in our third seminar. Listening to Rod, ask questions, we're going to be working in pairs. We've got about 40 minutes this morning. The more that you listen, the more that you understand from Rod, the more you're going to get out of your training, the more you're going to get out of your challenge, the better you're going to understand your body. Dr. Rod.
Thanks, Nick. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. We're going to keep this morning pretty practical, so we've got some tools that you can take away with you. As Nick said, we're going to be introducing the equipment that you've got, the foam rollers, also the trigger balls. You've probably had some experience with those and familiarity. What we're also going to add to the end of this is how to activate your body in preparation for the training that you're doing to reduce injury, but also increase strength as well. If you've got questions along the way, please feel free to ask. So the reason why we trigger and mobilise is to improve joint range of movement. So for instance, allowing you to get deeper in the squat. So if you're feeling tired after a day of sitting at the computer, releasing through the glutes, hamstrings, quads, and side of the hip will allow you to get a bit more depth with those squats. Sitting at the computer, you often get tight through the front of the chest as well, so allowing some triggering release to get you into a better position posturally. And then the other part of that too is activating, so getting muscles around those joints to be able to support, so core muscles, to be able to support, to be able to reduce injury and also improve performance. Alright. Times that we won't do this as well, so contraindications for triggering foam rolling is pretty well common sense. If you've got any open skin or wounds, don't be rolling on it. We want to stay off bones as well. So if you're rolling through, say, the hip bone in there, there's bursa around there, some tendons are really damaged. So if we just stay in some muscles, that's not the problem. Contraindicated in cancer as well. If you have cancer, please don't be doing this. Or any blood clotting issues as well. Pretty straightforward. Questions before we begin? Nope. Alright, so team up. So we're going to start with the hip area. Nick, I'll get you to demonstrate. So we've got two tools that we can use. We've got two tools that we can use. I like the spiky ball over the foam roller for most things, but what you might find that this is pretty intense to get started with. If you're quite slight as well, you might want to just start with the foam roller. So a nice introduction maybe. Use the foam roller. If that's not giving you enough bang for buck, we'll switch to the ball. The ball's a little bit more specific, as you can feel, so it fits into areas a little better than the foam roller, which is a bit broader. So starting with the hip, we're going to just keep it really simple. Front of the hip, side of the hip, two parts, then also through the glute. So go down, face down. So the ball or foam roller, we've got the hip bone here at the front, ASIS. We want to come about a hand width off that, and we'll find a tendon sort of band through there, and that's what we're looking at the ball. A lot of people are rolling on the ball or the foam roller. There's many different ways to do it. I tend to like to roll on it until we find the tender spot, the most tender spot. And then we're going to sit on that and keep the pressure on it for about 60 seconds to 90 seconds. And what you usually find is it feels like you've come off the point. So it starts to relax and unwind, and that's the release that we're looking for. If it's not feeling like it's relaxing and releasing, find another spot and see if we can get it to have that sensation. So the ball, front of the hip, we're coming down just on the front of it. You can get Nick to sort of hone in on where the exact spot is. Once he's got it, 60 to 90 second hold. As I said, you might want to just start with the foam roller to get a feel of it, because it can be pretty intense. Those balls are pretty spiky too, but a feel of it. So that's your first trigger area there, front of the hip. Next part, always let the face down. Round about mid-thigh, so top of the kneecap, top of the hip. Round about through the front there. We might roll a little bit till we find the most tender spot through there. So just come forward. Pretty straightforward. Fairly dynamic doing this as well. It's not really specific. We're finding tender spots, letting them release and then coming further down. Alright, pair up. Just remember to stay up any bones. It should be a 10 out of 10 pain. If it is, you need to relocate the position or take some body weight off it.
My hip, my
Is there anyone that's not finding any tender spot there? Before we switch over, find the next one down, so in that mid-thigh. You want to roll a little bit, find and really locate that most tender spot of that muscle. Before we switch it over, we just go to the next one. We're on the very front part of the quad there. If we just roll a little bit to the side, so instead of your front position, we're going to roll a little bit on the side, not fully side, but just about a 45 degree. We'll come up into the lateral quad muscle here as well, and that's a good release to help with the ITB. That's a pretty nasty one, so you might want to take a little bit of pressure off.
yeah, I do this the worst. Yeah.
Try some deep breathing, we might find you holding your breath here. We're trying to relax that muscle off, but we're really fighting and breathing intensely. We're going too hard.
I wish
Okay, let's go to the side of the hip. So location for this is, you can feel a big bony prominence. It's your greatest trochanter. We come up high, we've got the top of the hip as well. So we want to come smack bang in the middle of there, and you feel a nice depression for that core to sit in. So we're going to access this one side on. Where the tender spot is, you have that hip a little bit flexed as well, which will give a bit more of a depression for that ball to sit in. And that's pretty intense, so we're just going to relax on that 60 to 90 seconds. Deep breathing. might get a little bit of referral down the leg with that one as well. And with this one too, particularly, make sure you're off the bone. So if you're feeling like you're on that bony prominence, just come up a little bit higher into that depression. There's a beautiful spot there for that ball to sit. If you're having issues with that one, just come and call me.
Hello. I just feel it. Just release out. Lunges and stuff like that. It's all through that reflex. So shit. Really swapping the sides and stuff.
Does anyone need some help with this at all to locate? Pretty straightforward. You've got the very side of the hip that we've been working on that. That's when you put medial glute medius trigger points. If we come just about an inch further to the front, anterior, we're going to get another muscle, TFL, which gets very, very tight as well. And that one will send a little bit of sensation down the leg, so that's what we're going to go for next. So just to transition to this, it's pretty dynamic once again. We found that side trigger point. Bring the bottom arm back behind you, bring the leg back a little bit, and you'll be able to get to that sort of, it's about a 45 degree. It's not quite at the front, it's not quite at the side. That's probably the most tender one you've got so far. Stay nice and relaxed, keep your breathing. You'll find that hip opens up a little bit more if we just keep the hip a bit bent as well. So not locked out, but just slightly bent. Make sure you're breathing, trying to get your body nice and relaxed. So we've done through the front, we've done through the sides, we've done about a 90-second hold for each of those. We now want to come into the glutes, and particularly there's a very tight muscle that often gets shortened. It's called piriformis. It's like a sausage coming off the hip bone over to our sacrum. Glued onto it, you can add a figure 4 with this one. You're finding the tender spot. You're staying well, truly away from the bone as well, so make sure nowhere near the bone. There's plenty of room there. Find the tender spot, and you're just going to relax into it. There'll be a few parts here that are tender, so once it sort of feels like you've released the point, it starts to get less painful. Just move a little bit till you get the next part of the discomfort. This one you might find the roller too friendly for you, so up it a little bit to the spine. So the side of the trigger, that's the one we're doing figure 4. What we're looking to do is put a little bit of stretch on that tight muscle, like the kicking pose and what it does for yoga. And the other part too with that, is you want a little bit of weighting a little bit onto that side as well. So the side I've got my ball on, that side's down closer to the ground with a figure 4. If that feels too uncomfortable, just keep it without the figure 4 and that's still pretty nice. That's easy enough. Pretty intense too, that one. You're doing well. The last one we're going to do around the hip area is just through the hamstring. Extreme muscles of the hamstring. The one that's usually most tight is the outside one, it's called biceps femoris. If we take a position, so where the sitting bone is at the bottom of the butt, down to the midway point, or just slightly below that midway point, that's where we're looking to get this into. This is often done really well sitting, so at the desk is a good one. We get shortened hamstrings. We're using the ground. Find a tender spot. You can add a bit more weight with the other leg, and just let that release. You come into a sitting position now, and a little bit more difficulty with it as well. That's pretty nasty. So we're still on the back part of the thigh there. Now if we're down towards the knees, you're going to be a bit more tenderness. We want to still stay in the belly of that muscle. Any questions with the hip? Just keep it really simple. If we look at it too deep, there's way too much for it. So what we're trying to do is release the front of the hip, 2 parts to the side, and then down in through the glutes. And then there's a couple of big muscles coming off that hip, quads and the hamstrings, front and back. We did one on the side too as well. Not quite the ITB, but we just think the front, side and back will go pretty well. It's dynamic too, so some days you might give a better release, others not so much. We want to do it about 2 to 3 times a week. Pre-training is really good as well because it allows us to open up our joints, ready for the training. All right, coming into the upper body next. So shoulder area, we're keeping it really simple as well. We've got the front of the shoulder, we've got sort of the side near that shoulder blade, and then at the back. So just starting with the front, pec. I might get rid of this one. So most people know your pecs are chest muscles here. Sitting at your computer, we're often shortened through there as well with a forward head posture. That's going to cause all sorts of issues with our lat strength as well. So we want to try and get those shoulders back through triggering to offset your computer work or sitting at your desk, whatever it is, to help strengthen your training and posture. So face down. So we often come into a lengthened posture when we're triggering, so we can get the arm out to the side or up ahead. Girls, we want to stay off the breast tissue. We're coming up further into the muscle and that outside aspect of the chest. If you find your range is pretty reduced through there to start with, what we can do is just bend the elbow a little bit, and that will allow more weight to go through that head onto the ball. it is if this is too much for you, you can just push it against, or you can do it up against the wall. And that's often a favourable one as well. Once again, we want to sort of get your body in position so we can find the most tender spot. So it will be a little bit of a movement dynamic when we get the tender spot, and then we hone in on it, and then we release it with the static hold. So we're good, guys. We're going to come off next to the side. So looking at the side of the shoulder blade, we've got muscles that attach onto there for our rotator cuff, etc. And they get quite restricted, and it will restrict our range of movement reaching overhead. We're coming off the bone, obviously, so this is the front part or the side part of the shoulder blade. We can have the arm overhead, or at least at 90 degrees to the body. And just finding the tender spots, so there's plenty through there, and just sit on it, relax. Deep breathing. 60 to 90 seconds. It shouldn't be a 10 out of 10. If it's too high, maybe move to the foam roller. Just make sure you're keeping your neck relaxed on this one as well. So you can put your head in your hands. Let's stand up if you want. What we're finding is rolling on the ball, it tends to just take it more aggravating and comfortable, and it's just not as efficient as if we're just letting our body relax into that point. If you're rolling over, it's uncomfortable. It's already uncomfortable to be doing. Looks like everyone's done these before. Awesome. So what we're nice and close to the spot, we're going to come a little bit further back onto the actual shoulder blade. There's a bit of meat on there as well, so it's an easy transition. So from the side of the shoulder blade, we just put our body forward, and those are pretty intense as well. So we can use a bit of purchase from the other arm to take some of the pressure off. And this is going to help with our range of movement with internal external rotation, that shoulder. Awesome, guys. Next one we're going to come into is just our big power muscle, our lat. It often gets tight, gives us our hands forward, internally rotated position. Restricts range of movement overhead as well. So what we want to do is, we're already at the posterior part of the shoulder, the back part of the shoulder. We want to just move our body weight forward a bit more. We'll kick the arm overhead on this one. And you're sort of on the side of the body. There's a big muscle covering the rib there. And you might feel this one shoot a little bit into the arm. It's very thick through there, so it's quite easy to get that ball into position. And once again, looking to get the breathing coming in. If any of you are into golf, this is a really important one to release because it restricts your rotational movement. So that point is about probably a hand width below the armpits. So if you feel like having the armpits, you can come down over there. Everyone breathing? So the outcome from doing this is you should find that your range of movement is increased in an overhead reach. Your range of movement is better on a bench press. You're able to get under the bar and squat easier. You're able to get depth of the squat easier as well. So it's giving range of movement and flexibility through triggering and foam rolling. All right, let's put these away. Grab the foam roller. So that's just some basic triggering to cover releasing muscles to improve range of movement. Once again, we have the modern disease where we're all too kyphotic, in grounded position, sitting at the desk all day. What we want to do is use a foam roller to open that up. This is a nice, easy mobilisation. So we want this crossways across the body, or horizontally, and we're going to start up higher and work lower. We can't do the lower back very well, so we're going to sit mainly in the thoracics, between the scaps, shoulder blades, and down to about midway through the lower back, through the back. With this positioning, we want to keep just your hands on the ears, chin tucked in, and we're going to facilitate extension through our thoracic, keeping the chin down, so there's none of this neck positioning moving. We're just keeping the thoracic extension happening, all right? I'll get you a drink. So Nick's going to tuck his chin down towards his chest, hands on the ears, elbows forward. And then what we're trying to do is we're opening up that thoracic or our upper back, which is always, seems to be in this position, sitting at the sofa, your desk, computers, etc. So just run through mobilisation. That's good. So we do a couple at each segment there. And then you're going to move your body back further so that the foam roller is further down the spine. Nick's working the breathing with this as well, staying nice and relaxed. You might feel a few cracks through this as you're releasing the spine. This is really important with your training too. It allows you to get better nerve signaling coming out of the spine to feed the muscles and also improve rotation. So with golfing too, if you're into golfing, this is also really important. But just as a lifestyle exercise to offset some of that computer work in that punch position is really important.
It's going to be awesome for you. Are you able to just hold?
Yep.
Really?
you're not extending too much through that neck, you're still keeping the chin down towards the chest.
Always tight. Chin on chin. Just watch that chin, guys. So stuck in back and the chin and eyes are rolling from the chin.
So we're good, guys. Ditch your foam roller. We're going to get your side lying. The spine's got a couple of planes of movement. So it flexes and extends. It rotates left, rotates right. And it also side bends left, side bends right. So to get mobility through the spine, we want to get that flexion extension, particularly because we're mainly flexed a lot through the day. We want to really open that up, but we also need some rotation as well. Nice simple one we can do is called open the book or thread the needle. Knees bent, both hands together. And all you're going to do is you're going to trace with that top hand along your arm, work on getting that shoulder or the elbow, sorry, on the ground, and then back again. Nice and simple. So this is rotating to the right through that thoracic spine.
That's my cues of bow and arrow.
Bow and arrow, that's another one. The archer. This one's a good one. Try not to take your heart out. You ready? Really get that chest open, you feel a bit of a stretch through the pecs as well. Keep the knees on the ground. I'm probably not bad. I'll usually do the other side as well, so switch over to the other side. All these you want to do both sides clearly, but just for the sake of this morning, we want to do one side. Okay, so that's our theory done, and our nearly done. Any questions with the work that we've done there? Simple principles. Stay up in the open skin. Dermatitis and those sorts of things. And definitely stay off the bone. And if the point, you will have felt when it releases, it feels like you kind of come off it. So you've got to try and relocate. It feels like you've got to try and relocate it. If the pain's not reducing or the discomfort's not reducing, relocate it within about 30 seconds to get onto an area that will actually relax up.
Just make sure that's underneath for me, please.
So part of getting ready for your training and doing exercise is you want to release those muscles, those tight muscles without range of movement. And then you need to stabilise it, get all your big core or posture muscles working, and the peak performance, reduce risk of injury, and allow the body to produce power. There's a really good evidence-based group of exercises called the Gilbert 3. Very good to reduce lower back pain, good to rehab your lower backs, allows us to get power development through our hips, so a lot of squatting, box jumping, those sorts of things. really important for you. First exercise is bird dogs. You've probably done these before. Hands and knees. So Nick's going to take his right arm out. He's going to take the left leg as well. You want to hold for about 3 seconds. Come back in. Other side. There's so many variations of this one. It's like Chinese whispers. The way that I like it being done is you're coming out. You want that thumb to be pointing up. This brings in lower trap as well, which is often weakness. Want to keep the lower nice and straight. You can make it easy if you want. Coming down to the lower body here. You see a lot of people bring that arm right up. You can see that extension through the back. If you've got any lower back issues, it usually doesn't like extension. So what I suggest is we keep the foot close to the ground. We pull the foot back towards the shin and we push with our heel. And that then, you can see the glute activation through there. And this is working the small paraspinal muscles through here from my fingers, the many fingers, but also the glutes in that lower trap as well, linking this whole oblique chain together. There's a whole lot going here. It's such a pretty simple exercise. So just to reiterate, troubleshooting, keep the foot close to the ground, push through that heel, thumb up. Nice and long and length. Let's do it. You want about 12 to 15 minutes side with this one. If you find your back stiff in the mornings, this is a great go-to to get you moving. Considering about 92% of the population have back pain at some point in time, this is really, really important to prioritise as well. It's like a back hygiene. You brush your teeth every day, you should be doing bird dogs every day. Make sure you pull the toes back towards the shin and you're pushing with the heel. Keeping the foot close to the ground. If you're not sure if the foot's close to the ground, touch the toes onto the ground to make sure that you're in alignment. Calibrate where your foot's at. You can have a play around with this one yourself. If you're pushing more with the pointed toe, comparing it to pushing with the heel, you should feel that glute activation a little more with the heel.
I like to superset and tricep these. So if I'm training, let's say I do a bench press, I might go into a row, my back's nice and tight. That might be my third exercise and that's my rest. So I might go into my bird dogs nice and slow, 6 each side, and back to my main set. My bench, I've got a row, and then into my bird dogs. They're still part of my rehab, still doing them every single day, but just I start including them in with my exercise. I find that helps my back tenfold.
One more that we do. They all look really good. Just the problem shooting with that one is we're coming a little bit off the ground with that one. So make sure that we're keeping the foot closer to the ground just to reduce those tension through the back. And also pushing through that heel. They're not major things. The foot closer to the ground is more important. But you'll still activate what you need to do. If that leg's coming higher, but just for the sake of it, keep it high. Second exercise, just a side bridge. You've probably seen these, you've done these a heap of times. You're coming up, hips through. That's phase one. You guys are strong enough, you go to the straight leg. You want to try and work with that ideally for a minute. So if you're finding 15 seconds is pretty challenging from your knees, we might do 4 sets of 15 seconds. slowly, gradually increasing that. Obviously both sides with this one as well. Try to get your breathing into your belly with this one too, diaphragmatic breathing. If you find that shoulder and the stabilising side or the posting side is really uncomfortable, you can use your other arm to give it some support. So just coming into here to help with that. The idea is we're just trying to get those obliques and the glutes to activate. Switch sides if you haven't already. So I think as Nick just mentioned before, just to recap with this, how we integrate this is you come in, do some triggering to release some of the tighter areas. If you're training lower body, you don't have to do the upper, you can just do the lower. And then we're looking to activate. So if you're going to start with some squats, for instance, you come in, you release through your hips, front of the hip, side of the hip, feel the movement open up a little bit. You then come into your bird dogs, some side bridging. Feeling good, side bridging. Put the bar on your back. Come into your squat. You might feel alright. Not quite where I need to be. Might need to release a little bit more through the glutes. Back to your bird dogs again. They're feeling heaps better by this stage. Side bridging. And then when you get to your squat, as you start to increase the weight, it's starting to feel really good. Everything's switched on, you're stable. You've got good power coming in as well. So it's quite a dynamic thing to work with. The boys are really good to give you some information with that as well. But you've got a good position here to get started with it and incorporate it. Any questions at all? Nope. Awesome. Thanks for coming this morning.
Thank you, Rod. Guys, as Rod just mentioned, when you first do come in, especially for boot camp or for a class, you might know if you're going in a strength class, if you've got legs, you've got upper push pull, so leg push pull, you might go, oh, every time I go do that pull movement, I notice that my bent over row, I've got the strength up and bottom all day, but I notice that I'm here. So I need to go do my bird dogs first. I need to jump my front roller and go do my movements. That way, before I've even gone to the roller, to the row, my shoulder blades, my thoracic extension is amazing. I'm not here after working at a desk all day. I'm now here. After warming up, I'm now here. So instead of coming in and going, yep, I've done my arm swings and my leg swings, a little more specific to what you need. My lower back, there we go. Yep, that feels great. Wow, my hammies are tight. Hey, I need to smash hammies for a little bit. Cool, okay, wow, yep, wow, my range of movement is excellent today. I need to do a little bit more on the hip mobility. I need to get into my shoulders a little bit more. Everybody does different work, different jobs. We're sitting at a desk, bang, open ourselves up, trigger release. You're going to have to start learning what works for you. Rod's giving you the tools. You've got these tools now as well. And you're going to start putting into practice what works best for you. Have a lovely day, guys. Have a good weekend. Thank you very much. Support it. I'll follow it up tonight.